Guys, and welcome to The Young and the Tasteless. I am your loyal host, Kathleen Wallach, and I am here today to talk to you about character development. I know it sounds like a college class, but when you're writing, this is going to be a writing show. When you're writing, the most important thing you can do when you're writing a fiction piece, and even if you're writing nonfiction, creative nonfiction, when you sort of have to give your reader a reason to care about the story or care about your characters, you've got to focus on proper character development. We've all fallen prey to, the critiques on our papers or on our essays when we were younger and we were in college, and the creative writing classes about the character isn't developed enough. There's not enough reason for the reader to care about the character. So first of all, I want to just plug this book. This book is great if you're trying to give your characters life and make them, it's called Breathing Life into Your Characters, and it's about Rachel Ballin, PhD. It's how to give your characters emotional and psychological depth. So pick up this book. It's really, you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's really cheap. And its focus is to create convincing characters and to create characters that you want to know what happens to them. Because when you're writing, I've seen a lot of writing where, for example, for nonfiction writing, and this is hard, I think, to make characters you want to care about when it's nonfiction. David Sedaris is the king of making you care about his nonfiction stories. His essays, they read so well and so quickly and so amazingly because you seriously care about the people in his life, and he makes you care. And they're just like, some of his stories, some of his essays are just everyday things. Like, he'll go to the coffee shop, and that's like his whole essay. But you care so much about his characters and his life and his sisters and his brothers, and you feel like you're part of his family because he has become such a master, or he always was such a master at making his character, making you care, and because the way he describes them and how he gives you this, look inside his life, he's the master. And for nonfiction, I feel like it's so hard. And for essayists to do that, it's so hard because these are real people and he has to make them interesting to you as they were interesting to him. And he accomplishes it because he lets you know how he feels about them, and then he convinces you to feel the same way. And it's so, if you're a nonfiction short story essayist, if you're aspiring to be, read David Sedaris' work, because that is I feel like that is a shining example of how to make real people and make you care about these real people. I love his mother, I never knew his mother, but just from reading his stories, you just love this woman, and you connect with her, and he makes you connect with his brothers and his brother and his sisters, and obviously his sister is Amy Sedaris, who's very famous herself, and you love her anyway because she's amazing. But you love what he does. And I think that is just such an important, skill to have when you're a writer. Because, you read, there's all different types of nonfiction. He's more creative nonfiction. When you read books that are biographies about people, that's just, nonfiction. You sort of, you get into that book caring about the person anyway because you bought a book about Einstein, you bought a book about Grant. So it's, but his creative nonfiction is just, if you really want to know how to make characters lovable that are real, he's the way to go. Also, Augustin Burroughs does the same thing with his creative nonfiction. Him and David Sedaris are very similar in that way. I personally am a David Sedaris fan more than, but they're both great. Now for fiction, this is the hard part, because when you're creating characters that aren't based on anybody, or are based, but you're more just from your mind, you have got to focus on making these characters likable, making them believable, and making their stories flow. And it's so hard. I've written stuff when I was younger, and I didn't have any character development. I just it was verbal diarrhea on a page, and the characters just didn't flow. There was no reason for what they were doing. There was no reason for the reader to care about them. And I would write really unlikable characters, not because they were unlikable because of their personalities, just because there was no reason for what they were doing. You couldn't like them because you couldn't have any feelings about them. And so what I suggest doing, if you're writing a fiction piece and you want to make your characters good and believable and have them be real to the reader and have the reader care about them, is make a list of, before you write anything, do what playwrights do, make a cast list almost of your book. And so write a paragraph for each character. Sam is dropped out of law school because he wanted to pursue an artistic career because his father and both. And you just like you have to like get into that and just sort of do a paragraph for each character in your story, and then it'll come together so much easier because then you'll be like, when you're writing, it's almost like it writes itself because your characters will be taking over almost in sort of a scary Twilight Zone way. Like, okay, well, of course, this character would do that because their backstory is this, or Janine was, this ex-hooker, and this is why she, this is why her, mind is this way. And it's hard to just sort of go on a story and not have any character development. If your story is good, but your characters aren't, the story will fall apart, and vice versa. You have to have good characters with a good story. But I highly suggest for character development for fiction pieces to do that. It's fun actually, because it's like you're writing these like descriptive, paragraphs for your characters. So it's like you're almost giving birth to them, but with no hospital stuff. It's like you're giving birth to these characters, and you're giving them life, and you're giving them this, you're creating this little universe, for your characters to live in. So it's actually really fun. So if you want to write a story, if you have a great idea for a story, make sure, and it's fiction, make sure you write your characters out and what their motivations are and their backstories. So that also, when you're writing your book, you don't have any little gaps or mess ups. You'll know their history and their biography, so you won't mess it up in the story. Have like a glaring error. But so that's character development. That is how you do it. And it's easy to do it because you can pick and choose like little, personalities for people and they'll never know, because it's a story, it's fiction. But yeah, so that's what I want to talk about today was character development. I urge you to buy this book, Breathing Life into Your Characters. It does help, and it does give you, it gives you more of a perspective on how to make your characters real and how to make people care about your characters. A fiction writer who is amazing at doing that, obviously, is Stephen King. He makes you care about the characters, makes you want to know more about the characters. There's so many. Any big author, obviously, they're big because they were good at this. These sort of basic skills you have to master. So this will make also, and you'll make your query letter that much easier when you write to an agent, because it'll be like you get to describe the character because you know them so well. Make them your friends. Like, these are your family right now. Like your characters in your writing are your family, if you think of it that way. So that was what I want to talk about today. By the way, switching gears, Real Housewives of New Jersey premiere was on Sunday, and it was heart-wrenching. If you can watch a rerun of it, please do. Oh my god, I've never felt more for Teresa Giudice in my life. It was heart-wrenching, it was sad, it was so sweet. I just need to talk about that because everyone knows I am the super fan of New Jersey Housewives. Talk about characters, right there. That's great nonfiction character storytelling too. Real Housewives of New Jersey. But you got to watch the premiere episode of season 6. It was amazingly sad and amazingly heartfelt, and it was great. So that was your mix today. You have character development, watch Real Housewives of New Jersey, if you can. I'd suggest it. It's good for writing. This is my excuse. I watch it because it helps my writing. Because it does. It gets the juices flowing a little bit. But yes, so please make sure your characters are developed. Beautifully developed. Make sure you give them, treat them with respect. Treat your characters with respect. Make sure they have a life and that you are giving it to them and that you give them a good life and a good backstory and so people can connect with them. And that will make your writing career that much easier. So that was the show for today, you guys, of The Young and the Tasteless. Follow me on Twitter @WalletKathleen and have a beautiful day. Bye, guys. Mwah. Love, love, love.